When you think of sneakers, what's the first brand that comes to mind? If you're picturing a swoosh, you're probably a Nike fan. So lace up for a look at the company that has become a sneaker titan, Nike. Nike's warm-up. In 1964, student-athlete Phil Knight and his coach Bill Bowerman spent their days running circles around the track at the University of Oregon. They shared a dream of making the equipment better for runners across the sport. And what's the number one piece of equipment for a runner? That's right, shoes. So, together, they started Blue Ribbon Sports and operated as a distributor for Onitsuka Tiger, a Japanese sports shoe company. Knight made a name for himself selling shoes out of his car at track meets across the state. In their first year, Bowerman and Knight sold 1,300 pairs of shoes. Although they worked solely as distributors, Knight and Bowerman were constantly tampering with the shoes they received, trying to come up with the ultimate track shoe. One morning at the breakfast table, Bowerman had a eureka moment while pouring maple syrup on his waffles. What if he could use the waffle maker to create a tread that could provide runners with optimal traction? Bowerman created many Frankenstein-esque prototypes of the waffle shoe, sacrificing many waffle makers along the way, until finally he developed a design his athletes could run with, and the rest is history. In 1971, Bowerman and Knight ended their relationship with Onitsuka and launched their own line of footwear. Some of their early shoes, like the Nike Cortez and the Moon shoe, showcased Bowerman's waffle technology and were favored among athletes, pole vaulting Nike to first place on the podium. Shopping for shoes. In 1966, Blue Ribbon Sports opened a storefront in Santa Monica while they still functioned as a distributor for Onitsuka Tiger. A community of runners flocked to the store regularly as recreational jogging found its footing around this time among hobbyists. This original store fell by the wayside as the company grew, but in 2019, Nike acquired the original Blue Ribbon Sports storefront once again. They wanted the space to serve as a monument to the company's humble beginnings. If you're not in the Santa Monica area, hopefully you have a Nike Town near you. Nike Town provides Nike loyalists with the ultimate shopping experience. The first one opened back in 1990 in Portland, Oregon, not far from Nike's headquarters. The store is massive, serving as a beacon for footwear enthusiasts and sneaker aficionados. But it's not as big as the Nike Town in London. That outlet is 42,000 square feet. As of 2020, Nike had just under 1,100 branded stores worldwide, which doesn't include distributors like Foot Locker or specialty boutiques. Even in the internet age, when everything is just a click away, there is still something to be said for trying on shoes in person, just to make sure they're the perfect fit. The brand, the myth, the legend. Today, the Nike swoosh is probably one of the most recognized logos in the world. But did you know that graphic design student Carolyn Davidson was paid the meager sum of $35 for her iconic design back in 1971? When adjusted for inflation, that's the equivalent of about $200 today. In the 80s, though, Knight invited Davidson back to Nike headquarters to award her with a hefty share of Nike stock as a thank you for her contribution to the brand. Knight recognized that the swoosh is a big part of what makes Nike Nike, even today. In fact, the swoosh and the name Nike are pretty much interchangeable. But could you imagine if Knight had gone with his first choice and named his company Dimension 6 instead? It doesn't really roll off the tongue in the same way. Allegedly, an employee intervened when he came upon the idea to name the company Nike in a dream. Nike is a mythical name referring to the Greek goddess of victory, which seems much better aligned with the brand's foothold in the sports market. Nowadays, wearing a Nike swoosh on your sweatshirt or sneakers says a lot about who you are and the type of style you have. Nike's other big branding score is their slogan, "Just Do It." This was part of a series of ads in the late 80s that tried to target a wider audience. The original TV campaign featured iconic marathoner Walt Stack. Athletes across multiple sports have appeared in Nike ad campaigns, including Charles Barkley, Kobe Bryant, Wayne Gretzky, Tiger Woods, and, of course, the one who rocketed Nike to the stratosphere, Michael Jordan. Be like Mike. Some consider Michael Jordan the greatest basketball player the sport has ever seen. Nike was lucky when they swooped in to ink a deal with the legend at the beginning of his career in 1984. The deal almost didn't happen, as Jordan originally had his eyes on Adidas. He didn't even wear Nikes before he was approached. Air Jordans hit the market and quickly jumped to great heights in the sneaker world. Today, the Air Jordan Jumpman logo is almost as iconic as the Nike swoosh. The Be Like Mike hype may have peaked during his time with the Chicago Bulls, but that didn't stop fans from buying the shoes. These were the shoes that would elevate your game, on the court or off. Back in the day, a pair of Air Jordans went for about $65 and appealed mostly to basketball players. Now, a new pair of Air Jordans retails for around $200 and are sought after as more of a fashion statement than a piece of athletic equipment. And that's on the cheaper side of the price scale. If you're looking at a pair of rare or vintage Jordans, you better save every penny you find. The shoes rapper Eminem created with Air Jordan go for up to 30,000 big ones. And Nike has Michael Jordan to thank for making them into the desired brand they are today. So much so that the company has reportedly paid Jordan over $1 billion since signing his initial sponsorship deal. Nike has tried to replicate this success with other athletes, but no one can do it quite like Mike. Nike on the street. Nike made its first strides in the fashion world when designer Tinker Hatfield joined the team in 1981. Originally trained as an architect, Hatfield is responsible for some of the most influential sneakers in the world, including the Air Max 1, Air Max 90, and several generations of Air Jordans. Hatfield's attention to detail took Nike out of the realm of athletics and made the brand a legit fashion label. Another big moment for Nike was the rise of hip-hop culture in the 80s and 90s. The swoosh was more important than ever, as the style among early hip-hop artists included wearing the coolest brand names and monograms. The Nike Air Force One became the go-to sneaker, with rapper Nelly even penning a song about the famous shoe. However, the first official hip-hop collab was with Kanye West with the release of the Air Yeezy. Today, even high-fashion models have ditched the heels for sneakers, as designer brands like Gucci, Louis Vuitton, and Off-White have collaborated with Nike to develop shoes for Fashion Week. Skateboarders were buying Nikes back in the 80s and 90s, specifically Nike Dunks, because they were cheaper than skate shoes at the time. So, Nike hired Sandy Bodeker to marry what skaters loved about the Dunks with skate culture. He worked with skate-friendly brands like Zoo York and Diamond to create shoes they could sell in limited releases at skate shops, rather than at the Foot Locker outlet in the mall. His legacy in the skateboarding community and at Nike lives on today, with some of the shoes he worked on becoming favorites among collectors. Sneakerheads Unite. Through the influence of basketball, hip-hop, and skateboarding, sneaker culture was born. During the 80s and 90s in New York City, specialty boutiques like Dave's Quality Meats and Supreme started the sneaker craze. People would line up around the block to get the latest shoes, and Nike collaborated with these smaller stores to ensure the shoes were going to the fans first. It's hard to imagine that the hype around a new sneaker release matches the frenzy around the latest tech releases today. Forget about standing in line to buy the latest iPhone. People are lining up to get the latest pair of Nike kicks. Now, sneakerheads have mostly moved online. One of the most iconic Nike shoes is Jeff Staples' Nike Dunk SB Low Staple NYC Pigeon. Another is the Paris Dunks, and it is rumored that only 200 pairs exist in the world. And of course, the rarer the shoe, the higher the price tag. You can even get a pair of diamond-encrusted Air Force Ones if you have 50,000 big ones to spare. And if that's not enough, look no further than Drake's collab with Nike, where they created a pair of solid gold Air Jordans checking in at $2 million. However, with each shoe weighing about 50 pounds, they might not be the best thing to wear on the court. Nike's Achilles heel. Nike is at the top of the sneaker world, but that doesn't come without controversy. In 2016, former San Francisco 49ers quarterback Colin Kaepernick knelt during the national anthem as a form of protest. This sent shockwaves across the sports world. Other athletes followed Kaepernick's lead, while some fans and politicians lashed out, saying that athletes shouldn't be political. Amid this controversy, Nike re-signed Kaepernick to a large endorsement contract. Some people protested by burning their Nike merch, covering the swoosh on their shoes with duct tape, and pulling out their investments in Nike stock. But Nike stood by Kaepernick. Today, Nike and Kaepernick still have a working relationship that involves ad campaigns that champion social justice. Another controversy came about in the late 90s when Nike faced allegations about the use of child labor and poor working conditions in their factories overseas. Claims that Nike violated labor laws and workers' rights meant that their running shoes came with a hidden cost. Many activist groups protested and boycotted the brand, using slogans such as "Just do it fairly." While Nike has made strides towards corporate accountability in their factories, they still have some work to do in this regard. The future of Nike. Since the days of Bill Bowerman standing in front of his waffle maker, Nike has been at the forefront of sneaker tech. Nike is now developing smart clothing, like incorporating Bluetooth in their sneakers so runners can track their speed and stride. Nike is also developing technology to create sports equipment which will custom fit the athlete. They unveiled this technology with the Nike Mag, the real-life version of the self-lacing shoe from Back to the Future 2. There was massive hype around this launch, but with its hefty price tag, it's unlikely this tech will be widely available anytime soon. Nike is taking steps to lessen their eco-footprint. They launched their Move to Zero campaign with the goal of becoming carbon neutral. They've also invested in a program called Climate X Sport, which studies the influence of sport on climate change. Nike is also looking into creating a closed-loop production circuit that minimizes the number of new materials they use and relies mostly on recycled materials. Their most interesting climate initiative is Nike Refurbished, which restores gently used shoes by hand to resell. This fits right into the ethos of vintage and collector culture, so that iconic shoes will always be available to wear. Odds and ends. When it comes to Nike, their influence in sport and the world of fashion is undeniable. But this wasn't always the case. Someone needed to get the ball rolling. So in 1972, the company signed its first endorsement deal with pro tennis player Ilie Nastase. The Romanian became the first pro athlete to promote Nike. So, how popular is Nike exactly? Well, the company sells over 900 million items every year. Now, that's a lot of shoes, clothing, and sports accessories. One of the keys to the shoe company's popularity is their advertising, and Nike has even won several Emmy Awards over the years for their commercials. Did you know that Nike acquired Converse back in 2003? This puts two of the world's most popular shoe brands under the same roof. While Converse All-Stars may be popular, nothing sells like Nike's. And to prove that point, the brand sells over 700 million pairs of shoes a year, which works out to almost 1,500 pairs sold every minute, or 25 pairs a second. Just do it indeed. Thanks for watching. Tap on another video and show your support by smashing that subscribe button and ringing the notification bell.